Hi guys, if you listen to right-wing commentators and Tory MPs or ministers, they will continue to bang on about pay when discussing the industrial action taken by rail staff. You've probably heard at least a dozen times those on the right talk about how much a driver earns, how much Mick Lynch is paid, and other talk about how well off some people are on the railways. And of course they're missing the biggest point when it comes to this particular industrial action. Here journalist Taj Ali told the BBC exactly why the strikes are taking place. Have a listen.
What's the difference in your view between what's going on in the strikes in England on the railways as opposed to the RMT having settled their dispute in Wales and Scotland?
Well, it's very interesting actually. The RMT have now settled rail disputes with the Welsh Government, with the Scottish Government, some disputes with Transport for London, some disputes with some of the devolved mayors actually in places like Newcastle, dealing with things like Merseyrail, for instance, as well. There's been a settlement there. The difference with Westminster is actually the conditions tied to the pay agreement. So this dispute actually began in June, and one of the conditions attached to this was the work reform plan. Under those proposals, there would be threats to the ticket office, there would be ticket office closures, there would be threats to the workforce in terms of redundancies, and there will also be the imposition of driver-only trains. Now, the RMT have been crystal clear that they're not going to accept those conditions. They believe that it will lead to a less safe and accessible railway, not just for the staff, but actually for passengers as well. And I think this is a key sticking point in negotiations, is that failure to kind of reach a compromise on some of those conditions. I think they are willing to budge on pay, but really and truly from the conversations I've had with railway workers, with people who work on the tracks, for instance, where Network Rail have said that they're going to do a 50% reduction in scheduled maintenance tasks, there are real concerns around public safety here.
There you have it. And there you have it. Finally, it's about public safety. It's about safety of staff members. It's not so much about pay. As the journalist pointed out here, the RMT are willing to negotiate on pay, but they're not willing to negotiate on safety. And I think if more and more people understood that, they would probably say, yes, people who may be sitting on the fence when it comes to the rail strikes would be probably getting off that fence and standing next to the RMT saying, yes, we're fully behind you now. Because it's about public safety. As you heard, the rail operators want to reduce maintenance by 50%. We know how this will end. Cutting back on safety, cutting back on maintenance, we know how this is going to end. We're going to see an accident of some kind years down the road, maybe not even years, it could be months down the road, where unfortunately somebody gets injured or worse, and then the finger pointing will begin. The unions will say, we were forced into accepting these conditions, and the rail operators will say, well, it's not our fault, it's the workers not doing their job right, or they'll attempt to find a scapegoat. This is why it's so important that the media explain to the public exactly why the strikes are taking place. And it's really frustrating to hear, particularly on radio shows or on right-wing media, how it's all about pay. It's not all about pay. Pay is part of the equation, but the driving force behind these strikes is about protecting workers' rights and protecting the public. That should be paramount. These private companies want to cut costs. They want to maximize profit. And if they feel that they can cut corners and increase the dividend to shareholders, they'll do that. That's why it's important that you have a robust government, a robust regulator who will check to make sure that the safety measures are enforced, that there is sufficient staff to run these trains and run these stations, and that everything is focused on both worker protections and safety for the public. But once again, these private companies, that's not their focus. Their focus, of course, is maximizing profit. And if you have a Tory government who's in lockstep with that, then you're really risking some sort of disaster down the road. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.